welcome to the Total Soccer Show and our latest foray into the listener questions mailbag. On this episode, we're asking how good Napoli are right now. We're picking the best goalkeeper in the world right now. And we're highlighting the teams we love to hate watch, historically or right now. My name's Ryan Bailey. Joining me today, Taylor Rockco's here. Hello, Taylor.
Hello, my friend. Very excited to be here. I feel like these are some very interesting questions that didn't require a ton of research, but did require a lot of opinion, and those are the ones I sometimes struggle with. So we'll see how it goes.
Oh boy, a rich and compelling 45 minutes of audio coming up then, Taylor.
I mean, sincerely, yes, though, because I think it is a lot more like how do I feel philosophically about this one? More so than here is the data for why this happened. Although Joe, I think, will bring plenty of data himself, no matter what.
Here's Data's Joe Lowry. Hi, Joe.
I pushed up my glasses, audio listeners, just to really drive that point home. Now I'm telling you that I pushed up the glasses so that you feel included. You're welcome.
Joe, I have not seen the new War of the Worlds, nor do I plan to, because it has been universally panned and reviled. But I did listen to the How Did This Get Made episode about it, where I learned that the premise is that the aliens in this one are trying to steal all of our data. Do you feel seen by that plot point?
Oh, I mean, earlier this week, Graham referenced acquiring data from the Serbian top flight, as if we could have that information. And I almost said at the time, Graham, please, where are you getting that? I know he was making it all up.
Show me your data.
I would know about it if it was publicly available. Let's just put it that way.
I saw the Tom Cruise War of the Worlds. Is there a newer one?
I didn't know there was a newer one, but
yeah,
I just Googled it, and there's a Guardian article here from a month ago with a headline, How did a new War of the Worlds movie get a 0% critical rating? And right there, that's the point where I now want to watch this.
Ice Cube films all of his scenes in front of a computer, I think, maybe during COVID, I forget, but he's not, interacting with anyone, but has to pretend like he is, but is also sitting at a desk for the entirety of the movie. Great stuff.
I feel like it's not great stuff, but
I think
I'll be the judge of that.
I think the 0%, it might be at 3% now, I think, when last I checked.
Purely from your reviews.
Well, all the same. Hello, Graham Ruthven, and should we put some love on H.G. Wells, The Invisible Man, The Time Machine? War of the Worlds. What a writer.
Sure, if you want to. I have to admit, this is going to make
Bromley, Graham. Very, very near where I grew up as well.
This is going to make me seem very uneducated.
Yeah.
I could never live in Edinburgh. I don't read a bunch. Football stuff, yeah, I'd love to read. Just no time. Watching Serbian second division games, collecting data. So, yeah, sorry and all that. Could you read books and then... almost like a real-life AI. Could you read books for me and then just tell me what they're about? That would be handy.
No, I don't want to do that.
Okay.
No. I don't have time to read books now anyway because of, modern life and stuff. It's unfortunate. Used to like doing it. Oh, well.
Wait, so H.G. Wells wrote the book, but then was it Orson Welles who did the radio broadcast that, famously made people think that the invasion was actually happening, supposedly?
They were unrelated,
awesome.
I believe, but related by that particular story.
Weird.
Isn't that fun?
That is fun. I didn't know it was H.G. Wells. Thanks for teaching me something, Ryan.
Oh, I hope it was.
I just checked. It was.
Oh, good. Okay, thank you.
You can live in Edinburgh.
Sorry?
You can live in Edinburgh.
The best city in Scotland.
That's what Graham's implying.
And also where all the toffs live, so you'll fit in right well there.
Okay, good stuff. I look forward to my sojourn to Edinburgh. Patreon.com/Total Soccer Shows, where you'll find our bonus content, including bonus episodes. Hey, bonus listener question hitting the feed this week from our friend Carter Ross, who's asked us if you could go back in time to watch any soccer game live and in person, what would it be and why? If you want to know the answers from us four on that question, bonus feed for you. Patreon.com/Total Soccer Show, where you also get access to our Discord server. All the cool kids are hanging out in there. It is the best way to support us. A please and a thank you. Hey, I tell you what, Taylor. Boomstick on the Discord has submitted this question as well. Here we go. Are Manchester United a structural threat to English football?
Yes.
Okay, take a breath. Yep, there's the short answer.
Structural threat to my sanity, that's for sure.
Taylor's mood.
We do talk about them far too much, but hey, a question's come in.
We really do, and I try not to, and then it just pulls me right back in. Godfather 3 style.
It's not just us, to be fair.
I just want to say
everyone.
that we're not trying very hard, are we?
This is the structural threat we're talking about, though, Joe.
Yeah.
It's
This
to
is
our
how we
show.
tear down the system. Keep going.
Yeah. Since hiring Amrim, says Boomstick, they have a points per game that results in relegation in 2 of the last 5 seasons and 6 of the last 10. Goodness me. They carry enormous debt and are still one of the most commercially successful clubs in the world, presumably driving large amounts of money and eyes to the Premier League. In the unlikely scenario, where they go down, do they pose a systematic risk? Would that level of collapse present issues to clubs taking out loans in the future, and therefore to the entire current system, especially in England? So, Taylor, it's an interesting premise, but it does seem to be one that's founded on the fact that we are living in a Manchester United-based economy, and there are other big multi-billion-dollar enterprises in the Premier League as well. They may be not the Enron of soccer. I don't think they could necessarily crash the Premier League, but maybe you have alternate opinions there.
I really don't love what this club has become, that's a comparison that we have to make. But I understand where Boomstick is coming from. I think I ultimately would say no, they do not pose a systemic risk, because I think the Premier League is bigger than Manchester United. Maybe that wasn't the case at certain points in like the late 90s or early 2000s, but even there, I think that there were competitors and plenty of money going around. But these days, there is so much money going around, so much investment in that league, and so much competition that I think if Manchester United got relegated, it would be a massive story. They would get a ton of probably interest for the relegation, less so for them in the championship. But I think plenty of other teams would be just fine and make up ground as a result. And plenty of other teams already have, because we know where Manchester United finished last season. It's not as though they've been in the top 4 every year for the last 10 years. And then suddenly to have them gone, what does that mean? It's not as though they've been winning the title for the last 10 years and now they're gone. What does that mean? The way maybe we've had in Scotland or in Italy when Juve were relegated after Calciopoli. And I think both of those leagues, maybe one more than the other, have endured and sustained. So I think it would be a problem for Manchester United's investors, though somehow I feel like the Glazers would get out just fine, because of course they would. But I don't think it would have really that big of an impact on the Premier League, genuinely.
Yeah, I mean, this was the argument that was made by Rangers when they were facing demotion from the SPL after they went bust, that it would be like a systemic crisis for Scottish football. I think Armageddon was the term they kept on using. It would be an Armageddon for Scottish football, and it wasn't. They got sent down to League Two, where Stirling Albion were, and they made their way back up.
If it was an Armageddon, Graham, would you notice?
Yeah, well, maybe it is an Armageddon.
Would anyone have space madness like they do in the Armageddon movie? One of the greatest lines ever delivered. He's got space dementia, I believe is the actual line.
Well, actually, that might describe what a lot of people in Scottish football have. So perhaps it was Armageddon. Scottish football, domestic football anyway, is not in a particularly good place right now. I don't think it's in any way related to the whole Rangers episode. So I agree with Taylor. I think English football would just be fine. I think English football is in a fairly unique position where the brand is actually the league rather than the clubs. And I know you can't really separate the two, but my impression is that Spanish football sells itself on Barca and Real Madrid, and the Bundesliga sells itself on Bayern, and Ligue 1 sells itself on PSG, much more than the Premier League sells itself on the biggest clubs. And in fact, conversely, the Premier League often sells itself on the smaller clubs, and it uses them to say, well, look at how good these teams are and how competitive they are. We're the best league in the world because anyone can beat anyone. And so I actually sort of wonder if Manchester United going down would strengthen that idea, in the same way that I strongly believe Leicester winning the title was maybe the best thing that ever happened to the Premier League brand. Even though it was sort of a blip in this era of dominance by Manchester City, it was the thing the Premier League could point to and say, see, anyone can win this division. And so I think Man United going down would be a similar sort of thing. So I wouldn't be worried about this at all.
I think picture. Agreed entirely, Graham. I think if you streamline the narrative, if you're the Premier League, it becomes like that's how competitive this league is. That's how good you have to be. That, you know, a club like Manchester United with the success they had, this is the streamlining. A few bad years and suddenly you're relegated. That's how bad it can be. And so, yeah, I think if anything, they would probably use it as a selling point for the strength of the league.
There we go. Good stuff. Joe, anything to add here? Shall we move on?
Joe's desperate to talk Man United, I'm pretty sure.
I will not take this specifically to Manchester United or even to the Premier League in the same way. I just love it when Ryan says that. I wanted to try it. I do think the part of Boomstick's question that is the most interesting to me is, would that level of collapse present issues to clubs taking out loans in the future? And then talking about the entire current system, which presumably would be the promotion and relegation system that we see adopted in most countries outside of the United States. I don't have a good answer to that question. I would sort of assume that Manchester United will be looked at as something of an outlier case, and there are already plenty of other financial problems facing a lot of these clubs in promotion and relegation systems. Lyon is a great example. We talked about them in Tanner Testament earlier on this week. Like, there are a lot of clubs that are not especially financially stable. Could this, meaning that by this I mean Manchester United being relegated, could that spark further financial reform? Possibly. We are already seeing progress happen in that regard when you think about the financial regulations that have been put in place by a number of leagues and by UEFA as well. I don't imagine this would lead to the collapse of a system and like a wholesale change to how the sport is being run. But that part is interesting to me. Like, I don't have a good sense of how Manchester United, an entity of that size going down, would affect other clubs taking on debt to operate in the future. I don't have a good answer to that, other than I am skeptical that any singular thing could have the level impact that Boomstick is asking about, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, it only has a knock-on impact if Manchester United actually can't repay their loans, right? So they have piled up debt, but they continue to. They're not defaulting on payments or anything, Manchester United. And actually, Manchester United have been so incredibly immune to the last decade of underachievement. Last year was their best ever season in terms of revenue. I think the revenue was about 400 million. They finished 15th. They had no Champions League football. So that is something that has been surprising to me. I thought it would be the case there'd be some sort of like financial drop-off by now where sponsors don't want to touch them and, you know, players don't want to join them. I know that's a different point, but nonetheless, I thought their reputation would have been really hit in that sense. And so, yeah, there would be obviously an impact of them going down to the Championship. They wouldn't be getting the Premier League revenue, but they'd still make money. I don't think they're going bankrupt or anything like that. So, yeah, I agree, Joe. I don't think there'd be any like systemic knock-on.
And then to round it out for me, I agree with Joe. And Joe, thank you for taking us to that aspect of the question, which I did totally sidestep. I think we've already seen like the way clubs are acquired, the financial investment in clubs change, and that could be because you have sports washing and you have like sovereign wealth funds now owning clubs, but you also have. Is it Clear Lake? I always want to call them Clearwater, but it's Clear Lake, right?
Clear Lake,
Chelsea, and like finding new financial mechanisms to get around certain regulations. Like I think the way Manchester United were acquired and then the debt, like apportioned onto the club itself, I kind of feel like that doesn't happen as much. I mean, it still happens in certain areas. See Lyon, for example. But I feel like other ways of operating have come into effect in the Premier League such that if Manchester United were to go down, I feel like it would just be a Qatari bid coming in for $2 billion instead of $7 billion that ends up sort of changing things for them.
That type of leverage takeover, Taylor, is now against Premier League Constitution, the Glazer rule, they call it. So, which I'm sure makes you feel great.
Yeah,
that's what they call it.
Premier League Constitution, are they no longer accepting oligarchs and whitewashing nation states to own teams now? Is that something else?
Sir Alex Ferguson just had to get mad about a horse.
Yep.
Now here we are. See
Set
a Soccer 101 episode we did about this.
He did really like that horse.
He was probably on the right. But all the same, kind of stupid.
Boomstick, thank you for your discussion point there. We go now to Muse, the person on the Discord, rather than the English rock band, I presume. After four games, Napoli are looking really good in Serie A. How do we think they will fare this season in all competitions? Do you think they could shock a lot of people, even in the Champions League? Ooh, Graham, Napoli, the only perfect team in Serie A. Slightly nervy 3-2 win over Pisa earlier this week. Big game coming on Sunday at San Siro, facing Milan. That's a big one for them. How do we think they're looking? Are they contenders on a continental basis?
Potentially. I wouldn't rule it out. I was really disappointed by the City game last week because with the red card, and Joe and I spoke about this on the review episode, with that red card so early in the match, we just never got an impression of what Napoli can truly do, and it just became a defence versus attack exercise from pretty early on. So that was a bit of a bust, that game. They will, I would presume, improve beyond that point, and obviously not every game's going to be against Manchester City. Conte's record in the Champions League as a manager is pretty terrible. I don't know if that matters much, but he's gone out in the group stage 3 times out of 7 and has won only a single knockout game in his entire managerial career, which is a bit weird for a manager you would consider like potentially tier one of his generation. For a manager of his caliber to have a record like that is weird. I sort of wonder if that's due to Conte usually entering a spiral by the time he gets into his second season at a club, and that's usually when they've qualified for the Champions League and maybe they're already on the down by that point. I don't get the sense that Napoli are particularly on the slide right now. I did watch their game on Monday night against Pisa. They weren't great in that game, but I thought it was a game that showed how their floor as a team is now higher this season than it was last season due to the options that they have. They've added a good amount of depth over the summer. They only really lost Raspadori to Atletico Madrid, but now they've got 3 centre forwards. They brought in Luka and Rasmus Højlund, so they're not purely relying on Romelu Lukaku like they did last season. They've got 2 quality goalkeepers. They've still got Merit hanging around, but they brought in Milinkovic-Savic from Torino, and the two of them are sort of vying for the number 1 jersey. They've got good options in the wide areas. They brought in Kevin De Bruyne, who started well. On Monday they swapped out that central midfield. They had Billy Gilmore come in, and then Anguissa came off the bench. I think still first choice, but the point I'm trying to make is they look fairly well equipped to fight on more than one front, and I'd be shocked if they don't make it out of the phasing comfortably, and after that they could be a difficult draw for a number of teams.
Yeah, to start with the league side of this, because I know, Ryan, that's not exactly where you took us. That's part of this question. Would any of us be shocked if Napoli won Serie A again?
Nope.
I wouldn't. No. They are. I checked. They're the bookmakers' favorites to win it all again this year. I mean, there are lots of contenders in Serie A, as what makes Serie A so much fun, in my opinion. But Napoli, I think, are pretty widely regarded as the best of that bunch, and that's coming from the guy who just can't seem to quit Inter Milan. But Napoli, I think, are the front runners to win this thing. So that, I think, we can definitely say would not shock any of us. As far as the Champions League stuff, I'm a little more bearish than Graham on them, mostly because I am a bit worried about the attack. With Lukaku out for months with injury, I'm not a Rasmus Højlund guy. Lang is still betting in after arriving in the summer, and I just don't know that there are a whole lot of other difference makers in that pure forward sense. That said, the midfield is awesome, and Graham has already detailed a bunch of that stuff. Like, their midfield is very, very, very good, like Champions League winning quality good, I think, when you look at the names that they have in that group, and depth as well, Graham. I love that you brought that up. And I think they've got good production in goal, and I think they've got some strength along the back line. So this is a good team, don't get me wrong. I think they are still a handful of pieces away from being able to truly contend to make a deep, deep Champions League run. But that's the beauty of a knockout tournament, right? Is that if you're a good team, that opens the door for you to make a run and look like a great team. And that door is, I think, at least cracked for Napoli. They would not be in my top 8 favorites for the Champions League, though.
That was going to be my next question, Joe. Like, I know this is maybe an impossible question to answer because, luck of the draw and all that. But I was going to say quarterfinals feels like they're sort of their place in Europe. But if you're saying they're not in the top 8, it feels like you maybe feel like round of 16. You feel like we're round below that.
They're sort of on the fringes of that, right? I mean, we can do this exercise quickly. PSG, certainly I would have over them. Bayern still, Arsenal still, Man City still. That's 4. Liverpool still, Barcelona, that's 6. Then you're right, sort of on the cusp. You've got Chelsea in there still. I mean, you've got other teams, but I think Napoli are in that 7 to 10 sort of range. That feels right to me as probably the best team in Italy. It seems like we would agree on that at the moment. But still, and we've seen this, the best teams in Italy, generally speaking, do not tend to stack up especially well, although the Champions League is a bad data point to point to this. But still, I don't think the top of Italy is as good as the tippy top of any of the 4 other major European leagues. And that, I don't think, is changed by this Napoli team.
Yeah. Taylor, do we suspect that, given Antonio Conte's 2-season cycle, we tend to see that this might be the last time that this team can really challenge at the very top under Antonio Conte?
I mean, I think if he's happy, no, he could stick around and things could be fine. I do think, like, we have Juve with a new manager, Milan with a new manager, Inter with a new manager. It does feel like this is the time for him to be, Roma. You could add in there, Atalanta. Yeah, so like it does feel like it's an opportunity for him to have kind of the stability and consistency to win another Serie A title. I agree with Joe. That feels like a thing that will happen. But then, everybody spends some more money, catches up, has a little bit more stability theoretically, and maybe that is where the wheels come off. So, let's go for it this year. Napoli to win both. I share Joe's skepticism, concern, questions about Napoli in the Champions League, and then includes the phasing. Have we gone through their list of teams they're playing already?
Go on.
So it's at Man City. They lost that one. It's Sporting Club de Portugal. It's at PSV. It's home to Frankfurt. Then it's Karabag, who did get the win. At Benfica, at Copenhagen, home to Chelsea. That to me feels like some points dropped in there. That feels like they're going into that kind of playoff round, and that can be a crapshoot. You never know who you're going to get in there. So I think on the wrong day, they could be knocked out in the knockout round. On the right day, I think they could make a deep run, as Graham said. But when you have Scotto McTominay in there eating tomatoes and lounging on the sidelines and scoring hat tricks without even trying, who knows if anyone can stop you?
Yeah.
No, nobody can. Have you seen the aura that man has now? Quarterfinals at least on that alone.
I mean, it's wild to see that midfield. And then, like, even this past weekend, it was, Lobotka and Anguissa on the bench, and they were still just dominant because they have that much talent in there. They're pretty good. They're pretty good, that Napoli team.
Yep, they are indeed. Muse, thank you very much indeed for your question. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, who's the best goalkeeper in the world? Let's talk about it. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to our listener questions. We just heard a question from Muse. Hey, let's have another one. Muse is full of wise questions this week from our
Did you
Discord.
mean to do this? Did you mean to pick two Muse
Nope.
questions?
Oversight. Lucky Muse.
Would you say Muse is your muse then when it comes to listener questions?
Certainly is in the last 15 minutes or so. Yeah. All right, let's get to the second question. Who's currently the best goalkeeper in the world? In the past, there's been outright winners. Do we have an outright winner at the moment? And if so, what qualities make a best goalkeeper nowadays? Taylor, is it generally the consensus that it's Donnarumma right now? I don't even know.
No,
There's probably
nowhere
not consensus.
close.
Sorry, Taylor, before you answer that question, is it true that there's always been outright winners in the past? That feels a bit like
There's always been
revisionist
Neuer?
history where it's easy to remember one person as being like representative of the generation. But I feel like this is oversimplifying the situation. Is that just me? Am I wrong? I might be wrong.
We went through a long period where it was just Manuel Neuer who was the best goalkeeper in the world, and then actually for a while, Joe, I don't know if you remember this. Your exposure to this guy was maybe late stage David De Gea, but the argument was David De Gea was that kind of replaced him as the best in the world, and then after that, it's kind of been a bit mixed for like the last 10 years?
But even I mean, you guys can stretch back a little further than Neuer. Like before Neuer was there, I remember the Victor Valdez and who was there, Iker Casillas like debate back. That was sort of like when I was getting into soccer. I don't know. To me, I just don't buy the premise, which doesn't matter for the sake of this question. But I don't really buy the premise that there has been a consensus outright number one goalkeeper like each season for the last 2 decades. I don't know. That just doesn't seem to me how these things work, I guess.
So like late 90s into the 2000s, it was Kahn and Schmeichel, right? They were quite far and away the two best goalkeepers in the world. Yeah. After that, it gets a little bit trickier. Maybe it was Casillas, and then Neuer comes along, and for a long time it's him. But it might still be him. I actually think, for me, I was kind of shaking or nodding my head at the do we have an outright winner at the moment. I've been banging this drum for a few seasons. It's Thibaut Courtois for me. Yeah, Thibaut Courtois is the best goalkeeper in the world. He doesn't make mistakes, and I watch a lot of Real Madrid. I genuinely can't remember the last time he had a big blunder. He was second in expected goals prevented in the Champions League last season. He was second again in the 22-23 season. He was injured for the season between that. That was the Lunin season. And he's an orthodox goalkeeper. What I find interesting about him is he was sort of in that, or he could have been in that De Gea category, where he might have been phased out because he's not great in possession and he stays on his line. He's not that kind of goalkeeper at all. Feels like the trend has maybe come back round again, and everyone now wants a Thibaut Courtois who just does the fundamentals better than everyone else. There are some other contenders. Alisson Becker, I think David Raya's really good. I think we'll be talking about Joan Garcia in this category very soon. He's had an excellent start to the season at Barcelona. Manuel Neuer is maybe the best of all time, and he's still up there right now. I reacted quite negatively to Donnarumma.
You
right?
did?
I think he's a very good goalkeeper. I don't think he's anywhere near best in the world. Like he can be quite erratic, and I remember Robin Berner, who covers French football, saying that when he left PSG was like, there's a reason PSG, the best team in the world, have sort of exiled him and pushed him to Manchester City. If he was truly the absolute best, they'd be keeping hold of him. He's weak on the ball, and he also can be a little bit flappy from crosses, and his decision making, as we saw at the weekend for that Martinelli goal, is not always great. I don't associate any of those things with Courtois, other than the sort of relative weakness on the ball. but his strength in other areas like fully mitigates that one weakness that he's got. He's brilliant.
Okay. Taylor, you can go with Courtois as the pick.
I mean, or Matt Turner. It's kind of up in the air between those two. Yeah, I think it's Courtois from a like pure goalkeeping standpoint, and then I think is okay with his feet? ? I also think, to Graham's point, a quick Google of Courtois blunder shows me that the one, like, after leaving Chelsea, it feels like the one that is most pointed to is the Declan Rice free kicks, where maybe he gets his wall wrong. That feels debatable to me. And
even
that doesn't feel like a howler
can't say even
necessarily. Yeah. So I think it's Courtois. Truthfully, my list right now is Courtois, then Neuer, ? Then maybe Jordan Pickford deserves to be in the conversation for
Jordan
like
Pickford.
consistency and stability. And I don't know. I feel like he's been a very good goalkeeper and a very good performer for Everton and England for quite some time. But I think that speaks to Joe's point, which is that like I don't think we have an outright winner. I think you could make lots of compelling arguments for lots of different goalkeepers, Matt Turner accepted.
Joe, as to the part of the question, what qualities make a best goalkeeper nowadays? I find it stopping goals going in the net is the key attribute that's required. How do you feel?
Yep, 100%. Same as it ever was. Shot stopping has been the thing. It will always be the thing. That is the goalkeeper's advantage, is that they get to use the things on the end of their arms and nobody else does. The modern game does value more than just shot stopping. And Graham, you kind of got to some of this. The modern game values controlling space defensively with sweeping and cross-claiming and playing out of the back and having those foot skills. Those things I think will continue, right? You want a goalkeeper who can do as many things as possible, right? But as Donnarumma, well, as Donnarumma's move to City shows...
Joe's melting down.
I know I am. It shows that I'm melting down. It shows that shot stopping is still king. And Donnarumma has been a bit erratic, but his potential is as a shot stopper. Like his ability is as a shot stopper, I should say, rather than as someone who's going to be amazing with his feet and going to claim a bunch of space and come out and be really aggressive off of his line. That's not his thing. Now, there was a period of time where all of us, myself included, got distracted by, oh, look, you can actually play with all 11 players in possession and use the goalkeeper and have them do all this cool possession stuff. That's still true, right? I mean, every goalkeeper we've mentioned is capable to a degree of playing with their feet, obviously. But, Ryan, you're 100% right. Like, that core tenet of being a goalkeeper has not changed. If you are the best shot stopper in the world and pretty bad with your feet, you're still going to be playing in the Champions League. That's just how it is. Like, you take that player who can save you goals, who could save you games, who can win you games, over someone who is a mediocre shot stopper and who can play with their feet. Like, it's simple.
Yeah, I'm not trying to make this just about Manchester United, but like David De Gea would be an example of where that's not the case. That
His last season was pretty bad though in terms of like shot stopping.
He
dropped off quite badly.
I also said Champions League club.
But that's my point. Is I think for a period of time he is the best goalkeeper in the world from a shot stopping perspective. But he leaves Manchester United, has a rough season, sure, but also a lot of that is cannot play with his feet, and I do think that's why a lot of other clubs did not want him, because he's of an age or like in the era of we want distribution as well as goals saved. I think that is a big thing, that clubs still really want a goalkeeper who can pass, and they don't want a goalkeeper who can't.
Yeah, of course.
That, like if you are severely limited in that way, I don't know how much appeal there is going to be for you. And it's why I think maybe a couple of years ago I might have ranked like Ederson near the top of the list. And now if we're going from pure shot stopping, I don't think he's near there at all. So I think it matters certainly to some clubs more than others, and I think it matters probably more than it ever has. I think ultimately Ryan and Joe are correct that saving that goal is probably the most important thing.
Yeah, I mean, Donnarumma is the example, right? Like as sort of proving that clubs, even a club like Man City, although maybe they're just a full-on bunker team now, right? But even Pep is like, yeah, let's just get a big lad in who can save shots and we'll figure the rest of the stuff out. You know, like, yes, I agree. Playing out of the back matters more now for teams than it ever has. 100% agree with you on that. The point I was trying to make is that if you happen to be exceptionally gifted as a shot stopper, like best on the planet, and your foot skills are extremely limited, like if you are so exemplary at that one very, very important skill, like there is a home for you at the top of the game. That's not a practical example, because to make it that far as a goalkeeper, you are going to be able to pass the ball at least a little bit. But shot stopping is king. It will always be king. It has always been king.
I have one more question on this topic. I think Joe makes good points. Why is Alisson never in this conversation?
He should be.
I mentioned. Should be. Yeah, I think
should he? It just feels like he gets skipped over a lot. Maybe because he was back up to Ederson for Brazil. And so it feels like, well, you can't be if you're not the best for your national team. I don't know, but it feels like he gets overlooked a lot of the time.
I would have him as the second best goalkeeper in the world right now. But and Liverpool have Mamardashvili as their number 2, who I genuinely think could be in this discussion if he was playing first team football somewhere else. So that just shows how good they are right now.
Yeah, there we go. Allison's, I wouldn't say he's overlooked. Elvis Costello wrote a whole song about him in tribute.
Yeah.
So,
Good point.
That
was it.
Muse,
Good job,
thank you very
Ryan.
much for your second question of the episode. Tell you what, let's take one more quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Tobin Heath and the teams you love to hate watch. Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to our listener questions. Robert Cordova has been in touch. Hello, Robert. Robert says, how does the Total Soccer Show view Tobin Heath's club and country career since she announced her retirement? That retirement, Joe, coming back in July, having last played with OL Reign, two-time world champion, three-time World Cup finalist, two-time NWSL champ, part of a great era, of course, for the USWNT as well. How, Joe, do we look back on Tobin Heath's career?
Yeah, for me, she goes down as the most fun player to watch in American soccer history. I mean, seriously, I'm talking men's and women's. I cannot think of a more entertaining player to watch than Tobin Heath. And obviously, success. It was not all flash for Tobin Heath. It was also substance. Two-time Olympic gold, two-time World Cup winner. Amazing, amazing wide attacking player. So much fun to watch. I don't think, let me put it this way. It would be a long time until we have a player in American soccer who is as flashy, but also as substantive as Tobin Heath. Now, there are many, many, many U.S. women's national team legends, past and present, some of which are exceptionally skilled. I think about Rose Lavelle and Trinity Rodman and all these players. Heath was just on a different level, man. Like the 1v1 skill out wide is something that, for whatever reason, in American soccer, and this is more of a struggle on the men's side than it is on the women's side, but we just don't produce a lot of those players. And I will always remember Tobin Heath as being that player, as being a really key piece for some of those most successful U.S. women's national teams of all time, but being so much fun. Like, that is 100% what I think of when I think of Tobin Heath. And to add one more piece to this puzzle, even outside of just the pure on-field skill stuff, she grafted in the early days of like women's professional soccer in the United States, played in the WPS, played in the early days of the NWSL. American soccer is more stable now and is better now and is in a better place now, in part because of Tobin Heath and all the other players of that generation, right? It's not just like Tobin Heath raised this mountain by herself, but she has done so much, and that group of players did so much to create the structure that there is now. And there's still a lot of work to do. Don't get me wrong, in the NWSL, there's a lot of work to do in American soccer as a whole. But that doesn't happen. Like, we're not at this point where you're producing players and teenagers are getting a chance to play professional soccer in these amazing places. That doesn't happen without the generation of players that Tobin Heath is a part of. So all of that is in this for me as well. But I mean, nothing about Tobin Heath will ever change the fact that the thing that I think of her first is that she was just awesome to watch. And that's, I don't know, that's pretty cool. Like, if people could say that about me when I retired from something, that'd be neat.
I truly think Joe just said it almost perfectly, if not perfectly. Like, and I will then restate, because I don't know how much else I have to add. But I think, like, she was an exceptionally talented player, probably still is, can probably still ball pretty well. But I think is in a strange position of, like, passing her peak as the money starts to flow into the women's game, or more money starts to flow in a much more consistent way. But she's also, to Joe's point, part of the reason why that money starts to flow and why there is more interest, both from an American perspective, but I think also abroad. So in that way, like, she helps get that going. And Joe went through the silverware. She wins so many things and is so good. I think she is probably a superstar today and is making bank and getting a ton of sponsorships, except that I'm also not sure that's kind of what she wanted, because that is part of her career, and this is where I will try to tread delicately. I think she deliberately wanted to be under the radar, and I think a lot of that has to do with her relationship to Kristen Press, to whom she is now married, and has been in a relationship with since, I believe, 2015. But they did not want that public. They did not want that discussed until I think they were like in the very latter stages of their career. But I remember that being a hugely important thing to a lot of people, especially people who were very online. There were people like internet sleuths tracking the outfits they wore and noting, like, Kristen wore that sweatshirt last month and now Tobin's wearing it this month, so they must be sharing this sweatshirt. Like, I think they were very important in terms of their relationship, but also I think, like, very like interesting in how that couldn't necessarily be public, or they didn't want that to be public because they weren't sure, I guess, how it would be perceived, or if it was anybody's business. But I think teammates knew, but I'm not sure how many people knew publicly. And so I think that is also pretty significant in that they remain together and seem very strong and do a podcast together. I think is also part of the legacy.
There are other podcasts, Taylor?
Excuse me. I think I've heard that. I've heard rumblings.
Okay,
I've heard rumors.
got it.
I don't know for sure.
Sound right?
Okay.
But I think she's one who this may sound harsh. I think she probably fades from memory because other players from that generation probably stick around longer and have more notoriety, positive or negative. But I don't think that should be the case because she was such an incredibly important and just such a fun player to watch.
That's Taylor. I think you said it well. Like somewhere in there, I think Tobin Heath. You said a lot of things well in there, but the thing I grasped onto was like Tobin Heath, sort of her rise is not quite perfectly timed with like the rise of the women's game, right? And that's true of players across this generation. And that's what I was trying to get at with, like, we don't get where we are now without players like Tobin Heath. That said, in the age where all video is vertical and every video is 40 seconds or less, except for our full YouTube videos online, like, in that age, there is no player more purpose-built for that structure of content than Tobin Heath. You know, like
Tobin,
nobody
man.
is.
Tobin.
Nobody is. Fine. No, I'm going to stick with it. Nobody is better suited for the sizzle reel, like the 40-second sizzle reel, than Tobin Heath. That's one thing I was thinking about. The other thing I was thinking about is we've all been in situations where you're at some sort of event and there's like a pickup game going on and there's probably some former players or whatever around and you know, whoever it is, like people that are now in the media, and you play. And I'm the worst of the four of us, so for me, it's always daunting. But I think probably there'd be people that would daunt all of us that could turn up. There are many players I'd be more fearful to show my first touch to than Tobin Heath. You know, like just someone who it seems like the ball comes to so naturally and just responds to their actions in a different way. Tobin Heath would still be maybe my number one pick for some sort of five-a-side game that we had going on. She approaches soccer in a way that somehow makes Graham Ruthven's approach to five-a-side work. Or it's like, oh, I'm going for megs and skills, but also I'm winning gold medals in World Cups. You know, it's amazing. It's so fun.
That's what it's all about.
That's right.
What it's all about. I don't have the exposure to Tobin Heath that maybe the two of you have. The 2019 World Cup was kind of where I came on board with covering a lot of the women's game, and I covered that tournament for Eurosport, who were rights holders at that time. And obviously that's one of Heath's crowning achievements, where she starts 6 out of 7 games, but even then is maybe like getting towards the tail end of her career. I actually caught quite a bit of her when she came over to England to play in the WSL at a time when like women's soccer in the UK was really exploding. That was around the time that like England won the Euros, and so all of a sudden those games were on Sky Sports, and she played in a. Remember, she scored a goal in a Manchester derby, and I went and looked up this goal again because it was the goal that I remembered when we were talking about Tobin Heath, and it's a banger into the top corner for Manchester United on the edge, from the edge of the box. And she wasn't in the UK for long, but to your point, Joe, and the point that both Taylor and Joe have made, she was good for a highlight reel moment, and that was the one that I remember in that Manchester derby.
Great stuff. Robert Cordova, thank you very much indeed for your question. One more for this episode from K-Sides, Kenneth Seiden with this one. Who are some teams that you hate watch or get some enjoyment?
Sterling Albion. Sorry.
When they struggle. So you hate watch your own team, Graham? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, we won at the weekend. I enjoyed that. But generally speaking, I hate watching Sterling Albion, yes. So they have to be my number one hate watch team, yeah. Home and away.
I'd love to know how sincere you are about that, because you go to all the games and you spend a good amount of your leisure time and presumably finances doing so. Like, if you hate it, don't do it.
I don't hate the club, but the team, most of the time I hate the team. We're not a good team, so most of the time I hate watching us. So
maybe you feel like about Sterling Albion how I feel about playing golf.
Yeah, how do you feel about playing golf? I need that context first.
I will try and invest the time and energy in it, but most of the time I hate doing it because it's frustrating.
There we go. And have you got any better at it? I gave up on golf. I just don't have the technique.
That's why I gave up on golf and don't do it anymore. Yeah, more to the point. I will say, for me on this question, the team I obviously hate, there's only one team that I think everyone should hate, and I think we all know which one that is, the one that shouldn't exist. MK Dons, of course, I'm talking about, listening, in case you didn't understand that one. But generally speaking, I am of the disposition where I like to see underdogs rise. And the inverse of that is I love it when any big team struggles. Any of them. I love it when Manchester United are below par, or with all due respect to
knew
Taylor.
that was
I
coming.
love it when Real Madrid or Barcelona have a struggle. They have a blip. They have a bad season. I love it when Liverpool will have a dip because I personally think if a team expects to win trophies every year, I enjoy when they don't. And I think the fans need a little dose of that. Manchester United fans who were raised sort of in my era in the 90s, who just used to winning absolutely everything, this is what it's like being a fan, Man United fans, okay? Most teams don't win anything. I like it when other teams get a shot. That's my general viewpoint on this one.
So I don't have that with English football as an outsider because I generally view English football as like entertainment as a Scottish football fan. But Ryan, that point is exactly how I feel about Celtic and Rangers. When they struggle domestically, it is always fun and enjoyable. So I think we're on the same page there.
Okay, good. Taylor, who do you hate watch? Who do you get enjoyment when they are bad?
I think it's very similar to what you said, Ryan. And so I think, like, if I'm being totally honest, and it's a bias that I try to like push off when I can, but Barcelona is probably top of that list. Largely because I think when they have that period of dominance, I have so many friends who are like, they're just like Mescune Club. They just run the right way. They do it the right way. Like, they're not about corporate sponsorships.
That
and they,
annoyed
like,
me
they're,
as well.
And it's just so
That is an outdated opinion.
exactly. And so there's a part of me that very much enjoys, like, oh yeah, you guys, how's all that working for you all? Like the massive overspend and not having any stability and being indebted to Qatar and playing games there. Anyway,
I'm just dying at like your friends unironically saying Mescune Club to you like in a serious way. That is the funniest thing to me.
It's just a mentality,
Like as a way to say
but
goodbye.
Also like an ideology. You know, it just is. It's just
Taylor, do they have really complicated coffee orders when you go out with them?
probably, but I also sometimes do as well. So I'm not
You
going
as
to throw
well.
shade on that.
All right, extra hot with oat milk.
Extra hot. Who
Extra
orders coffee
hot. What's
extra
wrong
hot?
with
Me,
you?
every time, extra hot.
I was with
worse
someone
than
last
lukewarm
weekend
coffee.
who ordered an extra
just
hot
likes
latte.
pain.
I didn't understand what it meant. How do they make the water extra hot? It's hot
No,
already.
they just heat it up to the point where it's completely scalding and it will burn all your taste buds off. But that's how I like it.
The Italians wouldn't like that, Graham. Oh dear. Oh dear. Anyway, sorry, we digress.
They're not
Oh
here.
no, it's all good. So Barcelona is one that like I still will watch and analyze, but there is that part of the equation for me. And similarly, I think if I'm being totally honest, Inter Miami struggling is always kind of fun for me. I enjoy that one a little bit just for all of the attention they get, including on our show. But then also I think the special attention and special dispensation they seem to get at times. I think seeing, I don't know, Atlanta knock them out last year was pretty funny, if I'm being totally honest. I apologize, Miami supporters / Lionel Messi supporters out there. So I think those are probably the two. There's not many that, like, even Liverpool, like, I don't, I have some level of, like, towards them. But I also have, like, a begrudging respect for what they've done and how they've turned things around. And I think Fenway has done an amazing job as their owners. So, like, I don't really begrudge them that. I don't really have, like, Pep is hard for me to be like, Man City, you're doing things wrong. I think in the Premier League, maybe Chelsea is the one that I most consistently root against and don't particularly enjoy for Abramovich, for the Mourinho era and just how dominant they were then. But then for all the money spent and the kind of managerial chopping and changing, I think that rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah. Premier League teams who are dominant and spend loads of money, Taylor. Who can stand them?
I mean, there you go. I mean, it's fair. It's a fair point because I know it's the club that I love, so I can't say that. But I understand why they frustrate you. And I remember like assuming that everybody kind of loved Manchester United and thought they were fun, and then meeting people who decidedly did not, including
It's like
Ryan
talking to
Bailey.
Irish people about Conor McGregor.
Not
Yeah.
a fan. Not going to be president of Ireland.
I don't think there's any Irish people who like him. Anyway, sorry, Graham.
Taylor, I was just going to come back on like the Liverpool rivalry thing because one of my friends who I used to go to like Old Trafford with occasionally, I was talking to him about this, and he said something similar of like, I just can't hate Liverpool now in the way that I used to. And what he said was basically when he looks at Liverpool now, he sees Ferguson's Manchester United. Like, what they are now is basically what United used to be, and so he struggles to hate them for that. Like, even down to the Fergie time
tell you
goals
what.
this season.
I'll tell you what, I can't give that up. like I understand that entirely, but like my gut reaction was like, no, I can't give him that. No. But I think maybe that's like, but I mean, Curtis Jones is in there. They've got some youth, so sure, why not? No,
Becoming what you hated there, indeed. Joe, would you like to put your Schadenfreude on the table?
Yeah, I'd love to. I sort of share some of the similar big club failing funny theme that's kind of gone across the board. Real Madrid are the one for me that I like to see the downfall in because I am a Mesquite and club guy, so just got to do it.
Extra hot.
My other picks are national teams, which I don't think anybody has gone to yet. Clear number one for me at the moment, Canada. Canada's men's national team. People say you can't hate Canada. You can't. It's actually it's like not even very hard.
Wow.
All they have to do. I'm still
that a Marsh
kind of like
thing?
a Jesse Marsh apologist, but Jesse Marsh wants to be the antagonist. Like he clearly still feels slighted after not getting the U.S. men's national team job when it seemed like it was within his grasp. He doesn't get it. He runs off to the biggest sort of current rival. I mean, Canada's been better than Mexico recently. Basically, the biggest competitive rival that the U.S. has, and goes and coaches them and just does a bunch of antics stuff. And it's great TV. If we're talking about teams that I get enjoyment out of watching the downfall of, yeah, that's definitely one of them. The other one that comes to mind for me is England, just because it's like kind of funny when they do bad. Taylor, I think how you feel about Inter Miami is how I feel about England, and I know that we're kind of 3v1 on that, so we try not to absolutely hammer Ryan for it all the time.
Do it.
It's just
I don't think Ryan even likes England, so it's fine.
Okay, good. 4-0. It just is kind of fun. It's kind of fun when they're bad, and I deep down I enjoy it. I don't even really know why. I feel like I just got drafted into that. That's how all Americans feel, and also all Scottish people feel. And that's who I'm around most of the time is Graham and then a bunch of Americans, and Ryan's an honorary American, so it works. That's another one on my list. It's more, frankly, it really is more national teams than club teams because what? I mean, I don't hate Mexico United or like Orange County. I mean, it's just all the club stuff doesn't really land for me in the same way.
Joe, you are totally right about Canada now that you say it. Because I thought about Mexico. And in reality,
I don't hate Mexico. I just really don't.
I don't. And I think a lot of it, like, because there's so much history there, it's kind of akin to the Liverpool Man United thing. There's so much history there that it's hard for me to like fully loathe them and dislike them because there's so many like good moments and bad moments, but the bad moments make the good moments even better. And I think in a lot of ways, like that rivalry helped pull U.S. soccer forward and make it better. But the Canadian one, like I'm probably looking at a very narrow sample size, but there's an element of like, don't you wish you were doing it the way Canada's doing it, America? And I think that all automatically makes me
Also, it's
not
jealousy.
root for them. I think maybe a tiny bit, but no. But it's like it's the perception of like, haha, we figured it out. That occasionally has kind of come through with Canadian soccer, and the Jesse Marsh pounding it into the ground as well hasn't helped.
They're America's Wales. I've just figured it out. That's
Wow.
what it is.
Yes,
Fewer sheep, but otherwise spot on.
Fuck
Yeah, I
it.
think
America's
my
white whales.
More
Yes.
moose.
I think Mexico don't make my list, Taylor. Less to do with the history because I don't have a full grasp of that. Probably not even to the level you do. But also just because the U.S.
I'll say that.
have been better than Mexico since I've been doing this show. Like effectively, since I've started doing soccer things for a living. The U.S. have taken like Mexico's lunch money almost every time. Not every time, right? Gold Cup final and other times more recently. But the U.S. are just in a better spot right now than Mexico. Even now, even with Mora coming through and some of the great talent that they have, I would still rather have the U.S.'s player pool. And so it hasn't felt like Mexico's downfall is the falling of a giant. It's more just felt like, oh, the U.S. is the better team in this rivalry, which I know is a very limited perspective, but that is the heart of my perspective, even recognizing that that's incomplete. I think that's part of it, is Mexico aren't this big, scary older brother that they were for the U.S. for a while.
I think if we're going to talk about the international stage as well, for a team I enjoy when they struggle, it's one that hasn't struggled a lot lately. There's only one for me, and with all due respect to any listeners who are Argentinian, it's them. Historically, not regarded as being champions of fair play, shall we say? Certainly in one
Champions of my
particular
heart.
incident. Yeah, whatever. Anyway. I'd like to see him suffer. Is yours England for that stage, Graham?
Yeah, it is a major tournament. Of course, I don't want England to win any major tournament, and I don't even know if I enjoy. I just breathe a sigh of relief when they don't. There are times when I find it a bit embarrassing when we're nowhere. There have been times in like the last 15 years where we have been absolutely nowhere near. And in the grand scheme of things, we're still absolutely nowhere near. But right now, we make the Euros and we're at least on a similar stage to England. There have been times when that hasn't been the case where I just think it's like sort of embarrassing. But Wales is the one for me where that comes from pure bitterness and envy, where they have done things that we've always dreamed of, and That makes me better.
I'll say we need to close the episode out, but this anti-Canada, anti-Wales thing, this stinks of the classic Futurama episode where Zap Brannigan rants against the neutral planet. You don't know where you stand with them. They're so inoffensive, both of them. Anyway, that's it. Kenneth Seiden, thank you very much indeed for your...
I'm just loving Ryan painting Argentina as the belligerents. Like, I feel like y'all maybe fought a war about this at some point.
More on this in the Patreon, by the way.
Don't get me started on that, Taylor, because it's a long road to walk down there. Anyway.
Because all of England's former territories should be yours once again? Is that what I'm hearing from you?
Feels more complicated than that. Kenneth Seiden, thank you very much
Britannia
indeed
rules the waves.
for your question there. If you'd like to leave us a listener question, TotalSoccerShow.com/questions is one good way to do it. The better way, arguably, all the kids are saying, Patreon.com/TotalSoccerShow. Drop into our Discord. Come say hi. Leave us a question. Best way to support us. Thank you very much indeed to everyone who does so. And also, thanks to Taylor for everything apart from the last minute or two he just said.
I feel like that was my best moments, my friend. But it was my pleasure. I've enjoyed it immensely.
Good stuff. Joe Lowry, thank you very much.
Down with Canada.
Graham Ruthman, thank you.
I quite like Canada, to be honest.
Quite
Wales, though, down with Wales. Thanks, Ryan Bailey.
Canada's got better bacon. They've got beavers. What's not to love?
Better bacon than what? Like no bacon?
Down America?
Yeah.
Than starving?
All right. Everybody settle down. I've opened another can of worms, and we need to close this one up. Listener, thank you very much for joining us on this one. Enjoy your weekend. We'll be back very shortly. But for now, bye.